Hannah, we are
Hi,
officially live.
thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
I am so excited. Thank you everyone for joining today. We are streaming live right now on Facebook, a couple different groups, a personal page and also professional pages, and LinkedIn and YouTube. So
Famous.
hopefully like people will see it, Hannah, and if not, then they'll catch the recording.
Great.
So thank you so much for being here today. Hannah is just amazing, everyone. Hannah's a partner at the renowned law firm Frankfurt Kurnit, Klein and Sells. She represents clients in a wide variety of industries, including beauty, retail, fashion, entertainment, and consumer products, just to name a few. Her particular expertise is on advertising and social media and counseling on legal issues, most recently related to non-fungible tokens, NFTs, which we've heard all about and we will talk about today, and representing brands and platforms in this exciting new field. She works with clients to structure and negotiate virtually every type of advertising-related agreement and advises clients on claim substantiation and compliance with federal, state, and local laws, as well as compliance with the relevant self-regulatory guidelines, and represents advertisers before the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and the National Advertising Division. Hannah, you're just a rock star, and I love everything that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for such a nice introduction. I could not be happier to be here with also a rock star, recently featured in Law 360 for her rock stardom. So takes one to know one. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Hannah. And before we get started, what I usually do on the Legal Limelight is we tell people kind of how we connected.
Oh, great.
So I was trying to think, and I'm pretty sure I brought you on as a speaker when I was at Lattice and Perry. I brought you on as a speaker to an event where it was a panel, and then we went out to dinner after.
Yes.
And wasn't that lovely? And I'll never forget, you were just telling me how you were recently married, and you recently made partner, and you recently had a child, and you just gave me so much motivation because I wanted to have a family and I wanted to be partner, and you gave me the encouragement to really show that it is possible. And when you have the systems and the firms in place that allow that, you really can flourish. So thank you for everything.
That's so kind of you to say. I remember that day and the evening after also really vividly, because it is so nice to meet people that you can continue to have a relationship with. And we have, one of the nice things about that was like, I'm sure we all do all these speaking engagements and meet people, and it's sort of really incredible when you connect with someone, and then over the years, like that was years ago now. So it's really nice.
When I was like a first or second year associate. That was years ago.
Yeah, exactly. You're a partner now. So right. So like it is
it's crazy.
It's just special, and particularly with women, to be able to like stay in touch and talk to each other about the various challenges. Like I have loved to watch your career flourish.
Thank you. Yeah, I did a major pivot. I was at Big Wall, like and moved to a boutique firm. But it's been great. I'm super happy. Now I have time to do this.
I know, which is great and so helpful for your audience and particularly other women who are looking to figure out how to do what you do and maybe what I do. It's just like I'm very if I say I'm proud of you, then it sounds like I'm not your peer, but like I'm just happy for you. I'm amazed at what you're doing, and I think it's great.
Yeah, no, thank you, Hannah. And I know I'm not the only one. Like whenever I actually, like, a lot of people reached out to me and said, "Oh my gosh, you're doing one with Hannah. Like, I'm not missing this. She's amazing." So
thank you for saying that, and to all of them.
Yes. So let's just get started. This is really about you, and I'm really excited because I know you are super active with speaking engagements in the marketing and advertising and NFT space, but this is going to be time where we get to chat and we get to really hear all about you and your career. So I think we should start from the beginning, and let me ask you, where did you grow up and what made you decide to go to law school?
So I'm from Newton, Massachusetts, which is like right outside of Boston. I've learned in my adult age that I cannot say I'm from Boston, because if you're not real, it's like being from New York, right? If you're not actually from the city, you're not from Boston. So I'm from Newton. It was a great place to grow up. But it's funny when people ask me why I went to law school, it's actually kind of a terrible reason. My family is my dad is a doctor, but other than that, everybody in my family is a lawyer.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, my mom's a lawyer, my stepfather's a lawyer, my stepmother is a lawyer, my sister's a lawyer, my brother-in-law's a lawyer, all my uncles are lawyers, both my grandfathers are lawyers. It's awful. So, I mean, right, so I guess I just sort of felt, I wrote my law school essay of like, I think this is sort of like a family tradition. But then very luckily, I found out that I actually really loved it, and I found my own way to do it. I mean, I do something that nobody in my family does. So it really feels like a different job, but it sort of is a terrible reason. You should go because you have like this unique passion for it. And I was like, well, that's what happens when you get older. You go to law school because that's what everyone else did.
Yeah, you were born right into it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, long history of lawyers. But I made a good choice. I mean, I think a lot of people go to law school because they're not 100% sure what else to do. And I might have been that person, but I actually turned out to be a really good fit for me. So I got lucky.
Yeah, I didn't have any lawyers in my family, but I'll tell like a really quick.
Please.
I literally remember this. Okay, I was in Catholic school at the time, so it was it must have been fourth grade. Okay, it couldn't be any later than that. I went to public school. They asked us what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I wrote that I wanted to be a lawyer so that I could wear my hair in a bun and wear a pencil skirt.
You nailed it. That's exactly what being a lawyer is like.
Fourth grade, that just goes to show you like our society, like impressing women that early. But like, and like I always like my family always said like, Francesca, you're going to be a lawyer because like you like to talk or whatever. But I wrote about the attire, and I'll never forget my teacher like made me stay back and was like, Francesca, this isn't a good reason why you should do something in life.
Oh, that's so funny. I mean, it is interesting what makes us like how we conceive of lawyers too, because I feel like growing up, I was lucky that my mom was also a lawyer and my stepmother, because I think a lot of people, particularly even of our generation, like saw lawyers as men, and I just like didn't have that because I had, other models, which was lucky.
And I think Elle Woods like actually inspired an entire generation of like women.
I think she's continuing to, because I watch, I follow all these like silly meme accounts, and so they are constantly repurposing stuff from Legally Blonde in the legal context. So I think, even this new like Gen Z and younger generation are reaping the benefits of Elle. It's so funny.
It is. And like also this is totally random, but it's trending now, or was a couple weeks ago on Netflix. Like it was one of the recommended movies. So we watched it, and my husband and I were like, was it always this funny? Like it's a really actually a good movie. So if you haven't watched it recently, I will go back and watch it.
I haven't, but I do. I mean, it's one of the movies I've seen the most in my life. I think it's like objectively a good film. So
it is. And it's like cringeworthy and make you think about law school again. So
no one wants to relive that.
Well, speaking of law school, tell us where you went and what type of law you were interested in.
So I went to Michigan, go blue. I wanted to go, I didn't choose Michigan based at all on the type of law that I was interested in. I had gone to, for undergrad, so I went to boarding school for high school, which was like the most New England thing you could ever do. And then I went to like a tiny liberal arts college for college. And for law school, I was like, I want to go to the thing that is not either of those things. Like I want to go to the biggest, most like football, most like university type place, because I just hadn't had that experience at all. But I also wanted to go to a top 10 law school. So Michigan was like kind of an obvious choice for me. I think looking back, it's sort of like the decision to even go to law school. I made it for the wrong reasons. Like that's a really silly reason to go to a law school, is because you like want to experience like a giant university, you probably should go because they like specialize in the type of law you're interested in. I didn't think, I was too young and silly. I didn't think about that at all. Michigan ended up being a great fit for me. I loved it. I really,
cool.
Yeah, well, I just met so many people there who I continue to keep in touch with and love. So that's really special. And the network from there has been wonderful. And it just actually, it taught me to not only to think like a lawyer, but also to really value being like a kind citizen. And Michigan is the culture at Michigan is very like neighborly and helping each other out and non-competitive and collaborative. And I actually think that helped me to think about what type of law firm I might want to work in later in life, which has served me really well. Like I do think, even though it wasn't the reason I went there, it was actually really good to sort of start to think about those types of values as being part of the practice of law. And I've tried to like continue that. But I wanted to be a music lawyer. That's what I'm a huge music fan in my personal life. And I always was like growing up, I would say to my parents, like, I'm really interested in music. And because I'm from a legal family, they'd be like, great, you can be an entertainment lawyer. And I was like, no, but I'm interested in music. And they're like, sure. So that means entertainment law. But when I graduated, I'm old, I'm 42. When I graduated, it was like in the Napster, graduating from college, it was Napster. And I had all these informational interviews and everyone in the music legal industry was like, yeah, sorry, the music industry's dead. Like, that's not a thing anymore. We're not hiring anyone. It's going to be years. We're all like clawing for our jobs. Nobody knows what the industry is going to look like. Nobody knows if like a copyright will still exist. Like, this is just not the right time. So I'm actually very thankful in a weird way that happened, because now that I have some exposure through my current job to doing the music side of things, I'm not interested in being a music lawyer at all. I'm very interested in being a music fan, but it's a sort of serendipity that I didn't end up doing that. So yeah, but I've always been interested in pop culture and the arts, and I get to do that with what I currently do. So it kind of worked out.
I love that. And that's what because when we touched base earlier this week, you had actually mentioned that people think the traditional entertainment categories, film, TV, music, and being in 2021, that's just not the standards anymore. With so much disruption, there are all these new and nuanced industries that you've absolutely found yourself in. You've carved out this really unique niche, like with the influencers. I see you on a bunch of panels talking about FTC regulations. Now with NFTs, there's just so much beyond just the traditional. There's different roads. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, that is so important to me, particularly when I speak to younger lawyers who are interested in the entertainment business, to think about like, what is it about the entertainment business that you like? Because nobody really asked me that. I think that one of the things that we do a disservice toward the younger generation by not explaining like how the industries work and what the lawyers do who service those particular industries. Because you might really want to be a film lawyer, but not realize that a lot of what film lawyers do is figure out like financing and credit and do business deals a lot less than they are thinking about, the regulatory side or the IP side. So if what you're really interested in is like copyright, maybe being a film lawyer isn't always, it's like, so what I do is exciting for me because I'm, the simplest way to say it is I'm an advertising lawyer, or, work for brands to produce entertainment content, or agencies that help brands produce entertainment content. And people often, if I'm at a dinner party and people don't practice law or they don't know anything, what I say is like, LeBron, if Coke is going to hire LeBron James to like be their spokesperson, I don't represent LeBron James, I represent Coke. And I help them think through, like I help them do the talent agreement, and I help them or their agency, make sure that all the production agreements to get the sets are all set up, and that all the release for the props, like all the props behind him are cleared, and there's no copyright issue with the painting that's on the wall. And the music has been licensed appropriately. And then after it's created, we think through like, is what he's saying about Coke appropriate? Is he talking about the product in a way that's truthful? Is he disclosing that he has a relationship to the company? Is he, disclosing if he has like a piece of equity? We think, and then we think through sort of from soup to nuts, all the underlying transactional work that goes into that and all the counseling work. He wants to talk about the environment. Well, like, then we have to think about the green claims. He wants to launch a non-fungible token and, in collaboration with Coke. We have to think about the IP rights. So there's just like so much there. And I love it, but it's like being a regulatory lawyer and a First Amendment lawyer and an entertainment lawyer all together. And if you only wanted to do one of those things, you would hate what I do, because we have to do all of them. So, it's just, I think, helpful particularly for young lawyers to understand, like, have a lot of informational interviews to learn about what people do on a day-to-day basis, because what you think you might like might not be what you like. And there might be jobs out there that you didn't even know existed that you might love. So, it's helpful to broaden the horizon.
Well, I think that's amazing that you're like on this today, because like I said, you do a lot of the substantive legal talks, but I'm getting a lot of outreach from law students or even lawyers. It doesn't matter what age or which generation. I've seen a variety of different lawyers who have reached out to me, and they want to learn more. They may want to make a pivot given everything going on in the world. Like, some industries just aren't as in need of certain legal services as newer ones. I mean, like, did you ever think that you would be working with all of these like micro influencers or people who absolutely have money and need protection but aren't like the A-list celebrities that we would think of?
I know, it's so unbelievable. I mean, our firm we used to be on these two floors at our old office, the 9th floor and the 10th floor. And we used to always talk about the 9th floor and the 10th floor, because the 10th floor was the pure entertainment business. They represent like, all the actors, the A-list actors, all the directors. They represent like many more people in their personal capacity as artists. And we on the 9th floor were representing like big companies who would often hire those people. And so we would always like have these, amazing debates at our firm lunches and stuff about like, well, the talent should indemnify for this. And it's like, no, that's ridiculous. The brand should never ask like the talent to do this. And we would always, like, think about things from like a sort of a 360 view. And I think you're absolutely right that like the pandemic has made so much of that flip on its head, because people can make money sitting in their living room. And look what you've created during the pandemic, from your home. Like, you see people leave these, Fortune 500 jobs to, particularly people around your age, to like realize that they can do their own thing. And the sort of standard way that it was done by earlier generations is just not how it's done anymore. So having to keep up from a legal perspective with like, what price point makes sense to support people? What, do people need long memos of advice, or can you just jump on a quick call? Like, really trying to keep your practice nimble enough that you can service the way that the industry is moving is like so important.
Yeah, and you and your firm are very good at that. And Frankfurt Kurnit has a reputation for being ahead and adaptable. And the fact that like you guys did that room on Clubhouse, it's something very small, but how many lawyers have no idea what Clubhouse is and don't care? They'll write it off like, oh, why would I use that if I'm only servicing clients who can pay me? And then it's like, but like my mission, Hannah, is really to convey to lawyers and hopefully people watching this that you do need to start thinking outside of the box and not writing off clients that are entrepreneurs or have online businesses, because this is really, I think we had the .com boom. This is the online business boom, and people are very entrepreneurial. There's also a lot of millennials and Gen Z who are thinking about alternative tracks. Like, they want to work, but I know given what they're entering into with all of this flexibility and remote working, like, can you imagine them now all of a sudden like, okay, you have to work. You have to be at your desk at 9 o'clock and work till 6 and log in to do, like, they're not going to do it. and for firms that are flexible and will give, more flexibility, I think they're going to be the ones who are totally going to thrive, retain good talent, and just not go extinct.
I know. I mean, the remote thing we are thinking about constantly, like, what does our future look like? The managing partner of our firm is having meetings with people at all levels of this, for all the way.
And you have that gorgeous new office building, like.
No, right? It's like we should want to go there, but I think we do. And community building. I mean, Frankfurt, for people who are watching who don't know anything about Frankfurt Kurnit, like Frankfurt is very into its community. We are, our culture, we're a very culture forward firm, which I love. We're very much about having an identity of who we are and the Frankfurt way and all this stuff, which is like really always been based on values that I really appreciate and respect. But I think we're grappling exactly with what you said. How do you maintain that, which is so important to all of us and something that we really want future lawyers to be able to benefit from, and also recognize that nobody wants to be in the office 5 days a week anymore. That's not realistic.
It's got to be somewhere in the middle. It's going to be interesting to see what firms do, but I think the ones that force people to go back permanently with no flexibility, they'll lose their people. They will absolutely lose people. And I think the firms that go 100% remote, I don't know. They'll attract the people that want that, but I do think there's something to be said, especially in New York. New Yorkers don't want to be in their apartments. They want to go to the office.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's so true. Particularly for people that have been cooped up in these studio apartments for a year, or particularly people who've been cooped up with their toddlers, whatever. I get it that there's a space that you need to go to that's quiet, that's spacious, that you have, a good technology setup and stuff. But I think you're absolutely right that we just all, you can't, one thing that Frankfurt has taught me, not about being a lawyer, but about the business of law, is that you can't ever stop innovating. You can't ever stop thinking about looking around and thinking about meeting the business where it is. And they're really, really good at that. And they've helped me try to, flex that muscle a bit more.
I love that. Yeah. And you guys clearly are doing it. It's more, you see so many sustainability efforts or diversity efforts, and it's just just do it. I don't know how you have to do it, but do it. You can talk about technology all you want. You can have these fancy, well-written things on your, not Hannah's yeah, I know. You can have all these fancy things on your website, but if you're not on platforms like Clubhouse, if you're not actively using social, then you're just not going to be able, no matter how much money you pay on marketing, you're not going to be able to brand yourself as the go-to tech firm. So I know, we kind of went on a tangent, but I really think that spotlight and kudos to Frankfurt Kurnit for adapting and, embracing and promoting people like you who, you're able to still work very hard, committed to your billable work, but also you're super active in all of these events that you do. I love when I see your name on an event. I'll literally pay money to just, okay, I'm not a member, but I want to hear Hannah talk. And so it's great that you're in an environment where you can flourish and just in your life as you have children too.
Yeah, thank you for all those kind words. I do have to say that I owe all of that to Frankfurt in terms of not only teaching me when I was a much more junior lawyer, sort of, I'd be like, oh, I'm thinking about this issue, and someone would say to me that's great that you're thinking about it, but how about you let people know you're thinking about it? How about you write about it, or they were very good at training me to not just say, by the way, I think particularly with women, we often think no one wants to hear from me. I'll just learn this information and it, will help me to feel more confident in my counseling. But no one wants to hear my opinion. And, Frankfurt that's not man or woman, associate or senior partner. If you know something, they want you and are comfortable with you, taking a position in the industry, which is really cool. Yeah.
Are you active with anything else? I know you were on the city bar, or what are you active with now currently?
Yeah, so I do a bunch of stuff. Right now, I think the thing that I'm doing most is working with the ANA Center of Excellence to plan, the ANA is like the big trade association for the advertising business, and they have the biggest advertising conference of the year. So I'm on the legal committee for the Center of Excellence, which thinks about like what should that conference look like and what are they, yeah, but it's great. And it's really like, the who's who of advertising. I am like, the baby in the room. It's like all these big like amazing people who I've looked up to my whole career, and then it's me. I'm like, I don't know what I'm bringing to this table, but they're all people that I truly admire at our competitor firms and people we've known forever, and it's just like a nice community building activity, and just an opportunity to all connect on the things like synergies that we're seeing amongst all of our practices, things that we think our clients may want to hear about. So that's great. I was in the past pretty involved in women in influencer marketing. I've gotten in that, there's like a group that gets together and does that. I've been a little bit less involved in that in recent times, not for any particular reason, just because it's like, there are only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
And then over the last year, if I'm being honest, I've done a little bit less focusing on marketing myself and trying to focus a lot more on mentoring, particularly women, particularly younger women and women of color. So I've tried, have spent a lot more time thinking about how I can do that on more of like a one-to-one basis. And I also decided to take at my firm on the role of being the associate mentor. So I spend a lot of time with all of our associates, helping them think through, what they want their careers to look like and how the firm or I personally can be helpful in navigating different things that are challenging. So
you should also, because the one-to-one coaching is important, but I'm learning from my clients who are coaches that there's something very valuable in group coaching, because you're allowed to, not allowed, but it allows you to crowdsource some of these things. So instead of having the same conversation all the time, you may be able to, Hannah, like put up a webinar like on LinkedIn and say, hey, whoever wants to join, we're doing this live tonight or on Zoom. And then you could do, okay, Q&A, who has questions? And then other people can hear. So that's just one thought. I'm getting ideas from a lot of the people who are doing it in other industries. And so it's like not reinventing the wheel, but they've done it. They're the tech forward people. And I think like the law industry just has to look to them to get ideas.
Absolutely. I know, it's funny. I think that's such a smart point. And I think there are all these different ways that, we as lawyers, not just in like, there are people who professionally mentor, people who executive coach, and like we have so much to learn from them, but we also have so much to learn from like people who manage well, right? Like so many lawyers just become really senior lawyers because they're incredible at the practice of law, but they don't know anything about like the management of people or how to effectively like take their team and, make their whole team effective. So I think we have a lot to learn from, a lot of different sectors. And that's one nice thing about Frankfurt Kurnit is I think they're aware of that and they think about it. But yeah, I mean, there's just, yes. And the mentoring stuff, a lot of what I love to do, and I think, you probably know this about me just because you know me personally, but if I, see an opportunity, if I am mentoring like a young law student and she says to me, look, I really want to be a sports agent, my favorite thing to do is not to like give her advice on that, but to be like, great, I know a sports agent. Why don't I put you guys together? That. And that has been, helpful to me as I get more, as I'm old and I start to realize, like, no, I'm becoming I'm not old, like cane old, but I'm becoming senior enough that the people in my network actually do things where they could help junior, like the younger generation. And so I found that like, it finally feels nice to be like, oh, you are interested in working at a record label? Like, why don't I introduce you to this person? And, the older you get, the more people that actually are in positions to have more hiring power, help people.
I love that. And it's exciting because you mentioned, like you're a partner and you're growing, you're becoming more senior. And I'm now in the group where all of my friends are breaking out from being associates or being maybe assistant GCs and now having to break through. And it's for me personally, it was one of the most challenging things I've done yet in my life, was to just figure out how to get to that next level and like where was the right place for me. But I'm seeing a lot of people struggle, and it's very like painful to watch, because a lot of them are suffering from burnout, and they feel that they have to keep doing this to get to the next level. And my advice to them is to stay focused, but maybe look for other places or environments where you can flourish and you can get to the next level. Because I just think at a certain point, there are places that will work you to death. And like I was just on the phone with someone who's struggling with this right now. But she's very close. She's very close to getting to the next level. So do you have any advice, Hannah, for like the people my age who are now trying to break out, and if they are struggling from burnout too?
Yeah, so I think I want to like wholeheartedly agree with what you said, which is that not every place is right for everyone, right? So I know that it's very hard as people, once we've invested a huge amount of time or energy into something, to like think about the idea of like, no, but but I've spent so much time here, I've invested so much, that like, being nimble again and thinking about like, where is the right place for you? What do you really want? As opposed to like, no, I must make partner. Like, sure, I completely understand. I worked really hard to make partner. I understand why that title might be important to someone, but is it important in the context in which you're trying to get it? Or is it just the title that matters to you? Like, would somewhere else be just as good? So I totally agree with you on that. Also think that watching at least, I can only speak at Frankfurt because that's the only place where I've ever been where I've watched people like, what makes someone get promoted.
Yes.
And I think I would say at Frankfurt that the sort of like across the board thing amongst all the people who have been promoted is that they start to act like partners before they are. So it's not about, it's not necessarily about, who has the most giant book of business, although of course, like, we're a law firm, so like having clients is helpful. But I think it's like people who are not like, oh, sure, you're going to give me this assignment. Like, how do I do it? By when do you need it? Like, act almost like the employee. They're like, I got it. I'm on it. I'll take care of it. Ownership. I'll take care of your client. I'll take care of this relationship. You never have to think about it again. I can handle this. And they take like control of themselves and their own career. And, someone says like, I'm struggling with this. And they're like, that's my area of expertise. I'm on it, and it's not necessarily like working someone to death on the hamster wheel or like whoever billed the most hours or being burned out. It's more like an employee mentality versus an owner mentality of like, I want to be the person that someone goes to, as opposed to, I will work furiously for endless amounts of hours. Like, that's not, you should work smarter, not harder. That makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. Like, I'll never forget. And I talked about this the other day. Like, I always would say like, oh yeah, when I'm a partner, I was planning like my partnership, like celebration. And so it was never a thought I was going to be a partner. But where, I never would have thought I would have ended up back at a boutique firm, but with COVID and having my kid 2 months early and just like the situation at the time, it was like an amazing opportunity. So I took it. But again, I love that you said that, like they were acting that way. I think that's transferable in anything. Like, you need to have that mindset, and really live it. Have you ever read The Secret by Rhonda?
No, I know what it is, but I actually have never read it. But I believe that like you can manifest things by starting to do them, right? And I think like that I feel like I'm talking about women so much, which is great because we're two women, and this is we are in a female space, at least between the two of us. But I think women also feel a little bit awkward, like I'm the expert, or owning a space, or like being like, nope, I'm on it. I'm the boss here. I can handle it. They're worried about either like they're insecure about whether or not they have the chops, or they're worried about seeming bossy or pushy, or all the things that we're told are like unappealing for women to be. And I think it's really hard to figure out how to find your own voice and strike your own balance of feeling like of presenting yourself to your firm or your client base or whoever your audience is, that you like really do know all the things that you do and you really can provide value and still be authentic to like who you are. And that's like all of our biggest challenges, right? Is that balance.
I'm looking forward to you watching this like yourself. Do you ever do that? Do you ever like watch a recording of you?
No, horrible. I would never.
No, you have to, because what you do so well is you speak super authentically, but also in a way like you're very good at distilling very high level concepts in a super easy to understand way.
Oh, and say thank you.
Yeah, no, you have to watch us after, because like the way
I'll never do that.
Okay, I'm just gonna tell you, like, that's definitely one of your skills, and it's a breath of fresh air. I've been realizing that people they really want to understand. It's not just about like paying lawyers. And I try to do this, and you do this very well, is like educating your clients too, and just giving them the information to understand so that they can take it and learn. And as they grow, like you said, as they become with their partnerships, like they'll learn going forward. Okay, we need to get that music clearance. Hannah says we can't use that poster in the background. Maybe we should run it by her. Like, that's the point. And I wish more lawyers were like you in that sense, where just trying to say things in a super not conversational, but like a very easy to understand and digestible way is going to make someone want to work with you, versus acting like you know everything and confusing them with legal jargon. Like, I've seen both of them.
Yes. So I have to attribute that to Frankfurt. That is Rick Kurnit, who obviously, Frankfurt Kurnit, Rick Kurnit of Frankfurt Kurnit, was one of my biggest mentors in my legal career, somebody who I continue to admire in an unbridled way. And one of the things that I came from like white shoe, big law, and I came to Frankfurt Kurnit like all ready to be like, sure, I'll work all weekend or whatever. Yeah. And it's like such a like trying to be such a good doobie. And I would write an email to a client, and it would say things like, heretofore, and he was like,
oh God,
this is awful. Like, like, no. That's not what people want. It's not how we speak here. Like, they want short, concise, very clear, here's the answer, not a memo, not, it's interesting for you, I'm sure, to, offline at our legal lunches, we can think through all the complicated legal issues, but like, that's not how we communicate with clients. And, I was whatever, like a fourth year or something. So it was so helpful for me to get, I have half my practices with major brands. So I work with many in-house attorneys, and it's fine, to say to them something about like what's sui generis or something, speak to them in legal jargon. But even they want concise, short, understandable answers. But the part of my practice that works with creatives or marketing people or people who are not lawyers, like that's just not available to them. They don't have time to try to figure out what I'm saying. So thank you for being so kind at saying I'm good at it, but it's also sort of necessary for my practice to not confuse people, because there's so much that everyone, they just need the answer. What license do I need to get? Does this poster need a release? And if so, what's the release? Like, they don't want to think through like whether or not it's fair use under the fair use factors of the Copyright Act. Like, no one has time for that.
Yeah. I think that's a recent thing too. I literally think it's because of this, because your phones, a lot of people are now on mobile, and so if it's not easily read on your phone, then they'll skip it and they'll come back to it. And so the ability to say things in like a very condensed way that's easy to understand, I do think it's a lot to do with like the technology.
I mean, right? Think about we're we're seeing things in 280 characters. Like no one has time for a long, if I get some really long email, I'm like, you know, for my daughter's school or something, I'm like, oh, this is going to take so much time. Like it's just not a digestible, helpful way when we're all moving 10,000 miles a minute.
Yeah, I tell law students that too. I'm really active with mentoring law students, and they'll send me long LinkedIn posts, and I write back, and I'm like, nope, can't read this, rewrite it. If you want me to answer you, please rewrite in a couple sentences. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, TLDR. I need the top line. Like too long, didn't read. I need the top line, you know, summary. I know. We think about that even in how we communicate with our marketing, right? Like we might want to go through a complicated analysis of something because it's interesting, but there has to be like a very digestible summary because people just don't. For those who want to get into the weeds, great. And for those who don't, we have to make something else available.
Yeah, no, I love that. I can't believe it's already like 1:42.
Oh my gosh, time flies when you're having fun.
I know. So, I want to talk a little bit about NFTs just because it's like super popular right now, and my husband tried to explain it to me, and I guess I understand it, but again, going back to like you being able to explain these complicated things, can you tell us like what NFTs are, why they're important, and maybe some of the legal issues that are surrounding them?
Sure. So I will say that one of the things that makes it hard to talk about NFTs in a digestible way is that people are coming to this space with such different levels of knowledge. So like if a person who's listening doesn't even know what the blockchain is, then like it's going to be really difficult to explain like creating a token on the blockchain, because then, right, like there's sort of like threshold issues that you might need to understand in order to kind of get into it. But just at like a really top line explanation. So basically a non-fungible token, you know, you think about $1, right? If you have $1 in your wallet and I ask you, and I have $1 in my wallet, if we swap dollars, they're fungible. They're both the same. $1 is the same as another dollar. But if I have like one special, you know, coin that was autographed by, I don't know who, like, I was thinking Ariana Grande. Like, I don't know why anyone would care about a coin.
I like Ariana. It's cool.
Okay, like that's no longer a fungible coin, right? It's not fungible for another one because it has this unique property to it, which is that it was signed, right? So the first thing that that's different about non-fungible tokens is the fact that they are one of a kind or unique. And what a token is something, you know, we could talk about forever. It has to do with being a sort of ledger on the blockchain. So, you know, you might have like, there are all different types of tokens, right? And we don't have enough time to get into like what makes a token, and you know, a token on one protocol is different, like on Bitcoin is different than on Ethereum, and it gets complicated. But at a very high level, what people are now deciding is cool is that if they have some piece of existing art or a new piece of art or some other type of digital asset, they might want to figure out a way to monetize the rights, or the sort of, it's not even the rights, the provenance to that asset, like who has ever bought it, in a way that's recorded on the blockchain. So let's bring this into the real world so that I'm not, you know, speaking like a lawyer. Let's say I have this, let's say I drew this, right? And I really want to figure out how I might be able to get money for it, because if I just like put it on Etsy, someone might never see it. I could upload a digital file somewhere. It doesn't have to be on the blockchain, usually isn't. And then I might decide to mint a token that attaches to this piece of art. And what that means is I am now creating a space on the blockchain where when different people buy the token, they can put their place in a permanent ledger that says that they bought it. So you might really, if this is a cool piece of art, you really might want to be the first person ever on the blockchain to own the token that's associated with it. And then you might, you know, sell the token to your husband, and he would be another person that's listed forever in the provenance of this art. It's very important for people to understand that I'm not selling the art. The art is not, when people say like, I tokenized this art, or I'm selling an NFT about the, you know, of this painting, That's not really what's happening. They're
So
not.
what's happening?
The art, they're buying the opportunity to have a place on the ledger attached to the art. They are not buying the art.
So
And
it's
actually,
just a name saying? It's like bragging rights?
yeah, kind of. It's bragging rights. It's history. It's a way to give back to the artist, because maybe each time that token is bought and sold, the artist gets revenue from it, because that's one of the interesting things about tokens is that the token that's attached to the digital file, they can often program the smart contract in a way where they get continued royalties each time it gets sold. So it's like a way to give back. But it is not, and one of the things we saw, there was a big thing with the Basquiat estate, actually, famous artist Basquiat, someone sold an NFT to a Basquiat work, and the estate complained and said, I don't understand, like, you don't own the copyright to Basquiat. Like, how would you ever think that just because you own the token, you own the art? And I actually think there's a lot of consumer misconception right now in the marketplace. People think what they're buying is almost like they're buying the art in a new way, and that's not really what's happening.
And from like a consumer like protection standpoint, like I'm just thinking trademarks because I do trademark law. Like the point is that when you use someone else's mark, it's an indication that there's an affiliation approval, or that it's endorsed. Sorry, it's owned, produced by that entity. So how are people able to use the trademarks? Like Basquiat, I know is a trademark. How are they able to use that with the token without permission?
So this is exactly the types of issues that we're helping our clients think through. So not to be a lawyer, but it depends, right? If you are Coke and you want to sell an NFT to your a photo of your can, then you have to think about whether or not, you own the photo, right? Do you own the copyright in the photo? And then you have to think about, obviously, you own the Coke trademark. If there's nothing else in the asset, you would put the asset, somewhere on a server that can be connected to the token, like on IPFS or another file sharing, immutable file sharing place where the image is always going to sit there. You would mint the token. And then what you would probably do if you were being responsible, although we've seen lots of blue ribbon brands not do this, although I think it's a little odd, is you'd attach terms to the token offering. You'd say, like, all that we are granting you, we are not granting you the right to our trademark, we're not granting you the right to our photo, we're not granting you the right to anything, we're just granting you the right to use this trademark for non-commercial purposes for the purpose of displaying or selling this token. And then you hope that, I think the problem is really the enforceability, because a lot of the stuff that happens on the blockchain is anonymous. So let's say that someone buys the token and starts like using the Coke can for commercial purposes. Unless they're doing it in another context where you can figure out who they are, you might not know.
Wow. And then what about if you created the token, but it's not, if you're the owner of the content, the photo, the image, the likeness, but someone else creates the token?
So one of the helpful things about the way that all of this is done is that there are sort of third-party marketplaces that sit as like, almost like faces on top of the blockchain that allow a lot of this to take place. Like you have OpenSea, or Rarible, or Nifty Gateway, or these companies who are operating websites that facilitate transactions on the blockchain. And many of them, through their terms of service, have like DMCA provisions or other types of infringement policies where you can go to them and say, like, hey, I can prove to you that this is my trademark or this is my copyright. Please, take this. Please stop the selling of this token. It's infringing on my work. And the hard part about NFTs is that might take it off OpenSea, but once something goes onto the blockchain as like a block on the chain, it's immutable, which means
keep selling it.
Well, it's not that they necessarily could keep selling it, but it's that it will always, a recording of the fact that they did sell it will always be on the chain.
Okay, and why is that important? Does that harm?
Well, I guess it depends on what keeps going, right? Like OpenSea might not be hosting the photo. Maybe they put, as we talked about before, maybe they took, like, it's easier to speak in an actual hypo so that it doesn't get too abstract.
Yeah, no, you're explaining it very well.
Okay, thank you. But like, let's say I own, let's say I don't know why I'm choosing this random card, but let's say that let's say I drew this, right? And I find out someone was selling a token, like Basquiat's estate did. I find out someone's selling a token. I could go to the place where they're selling the token and say, please stop, please take down the marketplace advertisement for this token, but that's not gonna, people can still go on the back end sites that measure what's happening on the blockchain and see that I created the token. The fact that it's not being like up for sale anymore doesn't mean that the underlying transactions that are happening on chain stopped. And I might be able to go to one of the file sharing places and say, like, please try to disable the underlying artwork from this token so that it's no longer hashed, so that people can't, sell it anymore. But I don't know that I'll be able to get in touch with that person. Like, if this is not Facebook, right? These are like less consumer friendly actors. There's not like a ton of, at Facebook, you press like a little button that's like, my IP has been infringed, please check it out. And it's like a super consumer friendly thing. Like, this is all pretty new. So from a practical perspective, it could be hard to try to enforce your rights. There are ways to try to do it, but it's just not like a well-worn path yet.
Wow. If for lawyers, how can we learn more about this? Are you doing any more talks on NFTs?
Yes. So my amazing partner Jeremy Goldman and I have been working together pretty tirelessly on all things. He put out a primer on the Frankfurt Kurnit blog about just like what non-fungible tokens are and what they're not. So that's really helpful for people that want to check that out. And then we're also in the works of doing sort of like additional marketing on in the NFT space. And I don't know. People are like, NFTs are a fad, and other people are like, no, they're here to stay. I don't really know yet what I think on that, but I do think that digital artwork being sold on the blockchain is something, or other types of media being sold on the blockchain is something that we are not going to ever get away from. Like, this is the future. This is definitely what we have to think through. So even if it's not even if it's not a non-fungible token, we have to, like, I remember you asked me recently, what book am I reading? Like, truth be told, all I've read recently is books about the blockchain. So, because I just think that, talk about like staying ahead of the curve, like NFTs, whatever, but got to learn about the blockchain.
Wow. No, I'm so glad that you talked about it, because I wasn't sure if it was something that I should even like learn about. But now that I understand that there's serious IP implications, like I'm going to look into it. And so thank you for sharing the NFT primer. I will take a look at that. Do you have any other upcoming like talks, whether or not they're related to NFTs? Share?
I do. I have a few talks in the works. I'm trying to think about whether or not any of them are public or like things that people could join. I have a bunch in the queue, but all the ones that I'm thinking of are things that are more of a closed audience for now. But Jeremy and I are going to put together a more public presentation. We were actually thinking of doing a Clubhouse on NFTs, because there's been so much activity. Yeah, and there's been so much activity on Clubhouse about NFTs. There's this like funny Snoop Dogg headline from Vanity Fair that's like, 2021 is all just Clubhouse and NFTs. And I was like, that's my experience too, Snoop.
Literally.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. It's
and
funny.
Cannabis.
Exactly. And cannabis, right? That's so true. So even though it's not scheduled yet, I can guarantee you that we will be doing more on the crypto technology marketing front.
Good. Amazing. So Hannah, I mean, we're wrapping up. I told you that this goes by super fast.
It was a flash. Yeah, it was great. I'm so happy to see you and see you thriving and being such a star. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So before we go, I want to ask you one advice question, then I'll ask you where people can find you and contact you. But so you said that you do a lot of mentoring with attorneys, particular, and women of color. So what advice do you have for for women who are really looking, I want to ask specifically, looking to make a career move in this environment right now?
So I think one of the things that we always look for, I think a lot of times in the legal field, people think like, oh, it must be like that someone went to Yale Law School and then clerked like on the Second Circuit and then worked, at Debevoise. And it's like, sure, that stuff's great. But the things that I think are most important, at least for us, is like a genuine knowledge and appetite for knowledge about the industries that we support. So if I see someone like wrote 5 articles about, FTC disclosures, what's happening in, the live streaming space with live shoppable functions or whatever, like things that are actually going on in my industry, that is probably going to be as important to me as like someone's transcript or something, right? So
yeah,
I think it's really important for people to, if they are in their personal capacity or they're even in their professional capacity, but not what they're doing, like are thinking about these issues, are interested in them, like explore them, write about them, market yourself as someone that's interested in them, because that will really speak to someone who like if you wanted to come to, not you personally, but if someone wanted to come to Frankfurt, that would like really matter to us that someone has a proven interest in what we do and understands like the types of things that are going on. And you don't, all you need is like a WordPress page or like a Medium page or a LinkedIn profile. Like I'm not saying you need to have like published it in, Law 360 or something. This is just like showing us why you are interested in what we do and the fact that you might have spent some time thinking about it, because that's what we want at the end of the day. We all come to work and we're such legal nerds and we want to talk about like, oh my gosh, did you see that like this new functionality exists on Instagram and that's going to change the way that we do disclosures now, and like we have to, how are we going to advise clients? If you can show us that that's what you're doing in your private life, like come on board, yeah. So
I love that, especially as people are home and if they're laid off or if they're thinking about, how do I add something in my resume? That's huge. And so thank you so much, Hannah. Very quickly before we go, where can people follow you?
So I think professionally, my LinkedIn is really my most active, like professional profile. I use my, Instagram and Facebook for like keeping in touch with people from high school and stuff, or sending pictures of my daughter.
Clubhouse?
Yes, I was just about to say, I also am very active on Clubhouse. So absolutely there. We do a monthly advertising law club where we have, various guests. I did one yesterday. And then I would also say that Frankfurt Kurnit's advertising law blog is like, we post almost every day. So if you're interested in this area, even just for like finding out substantively what's going on, we have an advertising law blog and we also have an IP blog that's so good. Yeah, and that's like, we're really active there. So that's a good way to figure out, what we're talking about and what we're thinking about and what's going on in the industry, if this is something that interests the audience.
Yeah, no, it totally does. I will both of them. So I will reshare them, Hannah, on LinkedIn and elsewhere. Thank you so much. This was fantastic. I'm super grateful for you and for everyone else to be able to hear your amazing advice. So thank you.
Oh, that's really nice of you to say. And I am thankful to you for being who you are and creating this great platform and for having me on.
Thank you, Hannah. Okay, goodbye, everyone. Have a great day.